For more than a century, France has told the world that it is a friend to Africa. They speak of partnerships, cooperation, and development. They talk about aid, education, and cultural exchange. But behind the beautiful words lies a truth so deep, so shocking, that once you understand it, you will never see France's role in Africa the same way again. This is not just about history. This is about a system built in the shadows that still controls the lives of millions of Africans. Today, the story begins long ago, during the age of colonialism. France, like other European powers, carved up Africa, taking lands, controlling people, and exploiting resources. They used soldiers, guns, and fear to keep control. African gold, cocoa, cotton, uranium, everything valuable was taken, shipped to France, and sold for profit. The colonies were forced to buy French goods in return, even if they didn't need them. It was not trade. It was theft, dressed up as business. Then, in the mid-20th century, something began to change. Across Africa, people rose up, demanding independence. France knew it could no longer keep its colonies by force. The cost was too high. The resistance was too strong. So France made a new plan. They would give independence, but only on the surface. In reality, they would keep control in a smarter, quieter way. The heart of this hidden plan is something called the CFA franc. Most people outside Africa have never even heard of it. But for 14 African countries, it controls almost everything in their economy. Here's how it works. Even after independence, France made these countries sign agreements that forced them to keep their money tied to the French currency. Their central banks had to keep more than half of their foreign reserves in the French treasury. In Paris, this meant that France could control their money, their credit, even their ability to fund their own projects. Imagine you are a country rich in gold or oil. You sell your resources, but the money you earn has to be sent to another country's bank before you can use it. And that country, France, decides how much you can spend. That is exactly what has been happening for decades. And France earns interest on those reserves, making profit from money that belongs to African nations. But the CFA franc is only one part of the plan. France also signed military agreements with its former colonies. These agreements gave France the right to intervene militarily whenever it wanted. They said it was for protection and security, but many Africans saw it for what it was, a way to make sure no government could rise to power if it threatened French interests. Over the years, whenever an African leader tried to break free from the system, it were removed, sometimes through coups, sometimes through assassinations, sometimes through economic pressure. The message was always clear: play by France's rules or pay the price. And the price has been heavy. Africa is one of the richest continents in natural resources. Yet many of these countries remain among the poorest in the world. France continues to import oil from Gabon, uranium from Niger, cocoa from Ivory Coast, gold from Mali. These resources fuel French industries, French lights, French wealth. But in the villages and cities where they are taken from, people struggle to find clean water, decent schools, and proper hospitals. It is hard to imagine the scale of this wealth extraction. Take Niger, for example. It is one of the world's top producers of uranium. That uranium powers French nuclear plants, which provide electricity for millions of French homes. But in Niger itself, most people have no access to electricity. Think about that. The people who live on the land that gives France its power are left in darkness. The hidden plan works so well because it is built into everyday systems. The CFA franc is legal. The military agreements are signed on paper. The trade deals are official. On the surface, it all looks like normal diplomacy. But the outcome is anything but fair. It is a system where France takes the lion's share and leaves crumbs for the people whose resources make it all possible. In recent years, however, something has begun to shift. Across Africa, people are waking up to the truth. Young activists are speaking out against the CFA, Franc. Leaders in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are pushing back, demanding control over their own resources. Some are even cutting ties with France entirely, expelling troops and canceling agreements. These moves are bold and dangerous. France still has deep influence in African politics. It has allies in governments, in businesses, and in the media. It uses its power in the European Union, the IMF, and the World Bank to put pressure on countries that try to escape its grip. Sanctions, funding cuts, and political isolation are weapons in this economic war. Yet the resistance is growing. In Mali, people took to the streets waving Russian flags, not because they love Russia, but because they wanted to show that they have other choices. In Burkina Faso, leaders openly talk about ending the CFA franc and creating a truly independent currency. In Niger, the government has demanded better deals for its uranium exports. These are the first cracks in a wall that has stood for decades. France denies that it is exploiting Africa. It says the CFA franc provides stability. It says its troops are there to fight terrorism. It says its companies bring jobs. But the question is, jobs for whom? Stability for whom? If stability means keeping Africa dependent, if jobs mean low wages while profits leave the country, then whose stability are we talking about? The emotional weight of this story lies in the people who live with its consequences. A farmer in Mali sells his cotton for a low fixed price because the trade deal says so. A miner in Niger risks his life extracting uranium, but his village has no clinic. A young graduate in Senegal dreams of starting a business, but loans are too expensive because the central bank is controlled from Paris. These are not accidents. They are the direct results of a system designed to keep Africa in a position of weakness. And yet, despite decades of control, Africa's spirit has not been broken. The youth are more informed than ever before. Social media exposes the truth in ways that were impossible in the past. Speeches, documentaries, and investigative reports are reaching millions. The lies are harder to hide. The more people understand the plan, the more they reject it. The next chapter of this story is being written right now. Will Africa finally break the chains of the CFA franc? Will leaders be able to stand up to the economic and political pressure from France and its allies? Will the people demand a system that keeps their wealth at home instead of sending it overseas? 1. Thing is certain, the fight will not be easy. France will use every tool it has to protect its interests. But the wind is changing. The protests are louder. The demands are stronger. And the dream of a truly independent Africa is alive in the hearts of millions. This is the hidden loop plan exposed. It is not history. It is happening right now. And the more it is exposed, the harder it will be to keep it alive. France may have built a system to control Africa from a distance, but systems can be dismantled. All it takes is the will of the people and the courage of leaders who refuse to bow down. The world is watching. And for the first time in a long time, Africa is not just watching back, is standing up.